All right, we are live. I'm Tom Powers, the host of Pure Nonfiction, and I am here today with Nelson George, a filmmaker, author, historian. Nelson has a new documentary in the works called A Great Day in Hip Hop. He's just launched a crowdfunding campaign on Indiegogo. And today we're going to talk about the film, and we're also going to be talking about the role of crowdfunding to support independent work that Nelson has a lot of experience with. So, Nelson, thank you for doing this.
Oh, thank you for having me, man. It's a great. We just launched our campaign yesterday, so this is so timely for us.
Yeah, fantastic. So, let's talk about the project. I mean, as background, I should say for people who don't know your documentary work, maybe they know you as a author or music journalist or so many other hats that you wear. But you were a producer on Chris Rock's Good Hair. Your directing credits on documentaries include Say Hey Willie Mays, A Ballerina's Tale about Misty Copeland, Finding the Funk, Brooklyn Boheme, about the art scene around Fort Greene, Brooklyn in the 80s and 90s. And now you're making A Great Day in Hip Hop. So, to start with, tell us, what is A Great Day in Hip Hop?
So on September 29th, 1998, a magazine called XXL Magazine, they expected 100 people. They got almost 200 rappers, DJs, dancers, people involved with hip hop to go back to 17 East 126th Street, which is the same location of the famous Great Day in Harlem photo taken by Arcane in 1958. So it was a way to validate hip hop's history at that point. Getting Gordon Parks was a huge, because it just took the picture from being a picture to being kind of connecting to American history. And they got Gordon. He turned him down a couple of times. He finally agreed to do it. And the picture is probably one of the most famous, if not the most famous picture in hip hop history in terms of the number of people in it and who they were. Interestingly enough, the photograph was taken in the wake of two murders. It's 98, right? So Tupac was murdered in 96, Christopher Wallace, Biggie Smalls in 97. That had a huge impact on why so many people are there. When you go through the footage, you find Luther Campbell from Miami, Mac 10 from LA, guys, Scarface from Houston. People came from all over to Harlem to be in this picture. My connection to the picture
Maybe
also
kind of feeling like a sense of mortality.
Oh, absolutely. But also to counter the narrative, because if you remember rap violence, hip hop violence, East Coast versus West Coast hip hop battles, all of that was the narrative about hip hop at that time. And post it started before, it probably started in 94 and it's got bigger and bigger. And so there was definitely a very conscious sense among the MCs. No, we're not here. We love each other. We admire each other. I've never seen so many men hugging and exchanging phone. Back then, the people writing down phone numbers on paper. You know, so for me, my background with hip hop goes back to 79. When I was a college student, I was the first person to write about Kool Herc, and it's arguably the first one or two articles about what we now call hip hop. So I've been covering it on and off all during my 80s. In the 80s, I was at Billboard and writing for the Village Voice. Now, by the late 90s, mid 90s, I've done movies. I've worked with Chris Rock on a movie called CB4, a rap comedy. I did a thing called Strictly Business with Halle Berry, a sort of another romantic comedy in that black post-Spike black film wave that happened. But now I'm back in New York, and I'm thinking about maybe I want to try directing. In '97, I did a short piece with Samuel L. Jackson called "To Be a Black Man." It was based on one of my Village Voice columns that I made a short film of that actually was programmed at TIFF. It played as an opening piece. That Karen Bailey used to have a thing called Black Planet.
It was called Planet Africa.
Planet Africa. There you go.
It was a showcase of African diaspora films. Yeah.
So I got so my short played opened for one of the African films. It's like, wow, okay, okay. how do I make this next move? So my publicist, who's a big part of the doc, is a woman named Leslie Pitts. She had a company called No Screaming Media, a great name. And she, I went to her office because I think I had a book or something that I was trying to publicize. She said, "Oh yeah, I'm working on this thing. They're going to shoot they're going to redo the famous jazz photo as rappers. This XXL magazine." I said, "Wow, that's great. Can I get involved?" Well, call them up. So I went over, had a meeting. I had no money to buy the rights. But again, now 98, it's interesting contextually. Hip hop is a thing, don't get me wrong, but it's still not what it is now in terms of accessibility to access to mainstream. So I was able to go in there and talk to the owners of XXL and said, I'll hire a crew, I'll shoot it, and we're partners in whatever happens with it. So I was able to get a guy named Butch Robinson who worked with Spike a lot as a producer. We got a crew of 3 cameras, 3 digital video cameras, DV cameras, and one 8mm little handheld thing. And we got there. I shot some stuff on an old DV cam, like I have my like consumer thing. So we went up there and I shot the preparation, and then I shot the whole day. We went back and forth. It was a kind of an amazing experience. I mean, it was a love fest. People who had never met each other were there. So you have a moment where someone who's a kind of old school rapper, MC Shan from Queens, who's known for The Bridge Is Over, he meets a Corrupt from the Dog Pound, West Coast guy, who loves him and starts reciting his lyrics to him. Then Cameron from Harlem, who's again a completely different generation, he meets, and the 3 of them sort of embrace. Shaquille O'Neal was there.
Wow.
Because Shaquille, I don't know if people forget that Shaquille made 4 albums.
I did forget that.
So he was there because he wanted to be part of the community. So you had DJ Hollywood, who's an early rapper, Grandmaster Flash. Then you also had Wycliffe and the guys from the Fugees. And then you had several female rappers, the Brat, who actually was the first woman to have a platinum rap. So it was this really wild mix of every generation of that time. So it's 98 was 25 years from the founding. We call hip hop started in 73. We've all agreed to say that. So it's 25 years. So literally you have the early days, you have Run DMC middle, and then you have like the new people, like the babies there were like Mos Def and Talib Kweli, Common, who just had 1 album. The Roots, Amir's there. They've only had like maybe 2 albums. So a lot of people we now take as established figures were at the beginnings of their career. And their meeting, there's a wonderful moment where Amir and Plug One from De La Soul meet Debbie Harry, who was there.
Well, so let me break down some of the elements
sure.
of this.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Gordon Parks as the photographer of this. I assume a lot of people watching this will know who Gordon Parks is, but maybe some don't. And what did Gordon Parks mean to you at this time?
Well, I grew up with Shaft, right? He directed that, which was kind of in a way the first Black franchise in a sense, in terms of they ended up making 3 more movies and they had a TV show spinoff, had big soundtrack. So that's how I got introduced to him. But then over time, I met him and got to know him as a photographer. In fact, I'm going to show you something. On my desk right here is a print. Let me see. I'm going the wrong way. Here we go. There you go. It's a picture of a guy named Red Jackson. It's a photo that Gordon took in 1948 for Life magazine, one of his first assignments for them. Wow. So Gordon was the first Black staff photographer at Life magazine. When Life magazine and those photographs that came every week were the internet of America, where people plugged in visually, actually more like Instagram, if you will, in terms of the quality of the photography. So Gordon shot everything from Harlem Gangsters. He shot Paris fashion collections. He shot the favelas of Brazil, Malcolm X, Muhammad Ali, all of the civil rights movement. Just a diverse portfolio and an amazing eye. Also, Gordon was an author, wrote a number of books. and even composed. I mean, he's just this Renaissance guy. To this day, when I want to feel like I'm dressed up, I put on a tweed jacket and a turtleneck. Like, because Gordon was notorious for his turtlenecks and his tweed jackets. I can't rock the pipe, but if I could, I would. So, so he
And,
was a
and what
huge
was
hero
he
for me.
like? I mean, what were your interactions with him like? And I also want to hear like how he handled these 200 ecos to get what he needed.
Well, like a few things. One, he wouldn't. Actually, it's a funny thing. He wouldn't let us mic him. So the sound we have of him is from people next to him hearing him. He was very. He One of the goals he had was to place certain key people in the same spots as they did in the jazz photo, which proved to be a lot easier said than done because a lot more people showed up than they thought. The initial jazz photo, the famous 58 photo, all takes place primarily in front of number 17 East 126th Street. There were so many people that they couldn't squeeze them all in, so they ended up taking over number 19 and 21, which meant it kind of discombobulated their where is people going to be. So there was a lot of that. A lot of the footage we have is wrangling the artists, trying to organize them, and the fact that everyone was in such a good spirit was actually a problem because everyone wanted to talk to each other and build and blah blah blah. So there's definitely footage of Gordon coming up and trying to organize these guys and moving around, and that was a very funny thing. Is that passing along? He didn't want to be the one on the microphone. So there's a number of people, including Shaquille O'Neal, trying to wrangle the artist.
Like with the bullhorn, or
yeah, the bullhorn. Ultimately, ironically, kind of full circle, Kool Herc, who I interviewed way back in '78, 20 years before, and who is sort of acknowledged as the first real hip hop DJ, he had enough respect that he was able to get people together, which was kind of a weird full circle. So we shot this thing, an amazing day, and we couldn't. But the problem was the narrative of hip hop was one of violence. And no one really was that interested in a doc about hip hop where everyone was hugging each other. So I cut together one short piece back then, and then life, it happened. I started doing a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah.
I was working for Chris Rock at the time on his HBO show.
Yeah.
So the footage got put in a box. It's first in Soho and then ended up in a garage in New Jersey, as these things do. And it just sat there for a long time. Every time I've tried to go back to it a few times, but I realized, okay, I'm getting near 70. This footage has been sitting there, and actually the footage in a way has become more poignant and historically important because a number of it really is at a midpoint of hip hop history. So 2028 would be the anniversary of the shoot. I guess the 40th or 50th. I'm getting blank. I'm getting old, but it's the 30th.
30th.
Yeah, thank you. So this is the perfect time to aim to get that done by then, which is why I'm on it right now.
Yeah.
And then I just thought, listen, Black history is American history. Hip hop history is American history. Gordon Parks is an American icon. In this environment that we're in, affirming the centrality of Black culture to American culture becomes a political statement, even if you don't want it to be.
Yeah.
And I think one of the reasons that I actually want to do the crowdfunding is it's a whole different world than it used to be. It's like, the idea is to build something and go to Sundance and sell it to a streamer? Maybe not. But maybe the idea is to build it. Because I have 7 hours of footage. My wife is my editor. We worked on Ballerina's Tale together, so she's been going through it in the other room. So we have a really good template. Our goal with the crowdfunding is just to get enough money to do some shoots, to get some of the rappers who were there. Fat Joe, for example, who's become quite a character in his own right. Getting Shaquille O'Neal to come back and talk about that. Also, a number of women, it was a lot of women, this Leslie Pitts, who I mentioned, this woman named Sheena Lester, who was the editor at XXL, who were the engines for making this happen. So part of that is to celebrate their, and the fact is that in the history of hip hop, many, many, many women have been the backbone of the industry and getting from publicists, promotion, management. So that's a story that's ingrained in this story. Um, so yeah, so I feel like it's in a way it's timely, and the footage is just amazing. You know, I looked at it, and I'll share this a clip that's with the campaign of Indiegogo. Uh, but there's so much amazing moments of people you can't expect to be together, uh, and it makes you think about what hip hop was. I think one of the things I also want to accomplish is getting people like Fat Joe or Common, or whoever, Most, or now Yasin Bey, as he goes by now, is to look at the journey of this culture because now it's middle aged, right? And many of the artists in the picture are grandfathers, and there might be a couple of great grandfathers in there. So
Yeah.
hip hop, hip hop as an adult culture, and what does it mean to be what does it mean to be old in a youth culture?
Mm. So let me ask you
Sure.
about your experience with crowdfunding, and I
Yeah.
want to take it back to the 1980s of independent film. You were a witness to
Yeah.
the starts of the career of Spike Lee and Chris Rock, and I wonder if you can reflect on the independent spirit that was in the air then and how that spirit exists today.
Well, it's funny. I was an investor in two films that note. One was She's Gotta Have It, and that was the beginning of Spike, and ultimately, in many ways, the beginning of this whole black film wave. I also was involved with Leslie Harris's Just Another Girl in IRT, and actually another film that I actually didn't put money in, but helped them find money was this a crazy horror picture called Death by Temptation that Troma picked up of all people. There was a number of those projects I was around. Um, it was exciting because the truth was everything was being invented. Um, Spike is a peer of Jim Jarmusch and uh, come on, I'm drawing a blank. Clerks,
Yeah.
and all of that
Kevin
stuff.
Smith. Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
even Kevin Smith kind
and
of comes after,
right, but I mean, it's all part of the same world.
yeah.
This world uh, of there's these weird stories. They're not weird stories, but they're weird stories because they didn't exist in film yet. They existed in books. They existed in songs. And I felt like that's what was going on. And I know that the sense of possibility that She's Gotta Have It opened up, that a film that was made in Brooklyn and a then unfashionable part of Brooklyn could be financed and get off the ground with donate Larry Fishburne, Lawrence Fishburne was one of the also investors, and She's Gotta Have It. Um, and get to the point where it plays the San Francisco Film Festival. Then it gets invited to Cannes. That opened up such a window, a possibility. I know for myself, I'd always been interested in film, but I was deeply invested in my music writing career and writing books. Being around Spike, like, oh, this is possible. This is something that I could possibly do. And that everything I've done in film really goes back to that moment.
Yeah.
So
And when you talk about She's Gotta Have It, I mean, in a way, it sounds like it was kind of built on a crowdfunding of its day. I mean, it wasn't crowdfunding off of a platform, but it was Spike getting little investments from
yeah.
not just one big investor, but a whole bunch of people.
Oh, absolutely. It was a whole network of folks. I mean, and even if you go back to Malcolm X, we had the budget problems from he and Warner Brothers were at loggerheads about the budget. Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, Oprah Winfrey. He got a whole bunch of folks to come in and give money at the end of that process to get off the finish line. So, uh, yes, I mean, he's the original crowdfunder for me in that way. And just, and quite honestly, I still make money if She's Gotta Have It. I'm still getting checks, uh, quarterly checks from Spike because it's different
Better
rights
than the
things. So
stock market.
it's way better than the stock market. So it's amazing. Uh, so also to talk so about the contemporary world. So I've done this is my fourth crowdfunding campaign. The first one was for Brooklyn Boheme, which I forgot to early, 2009, 2010, something like that. Finding the Funk, which in the middle, and then most successfully Ballerina's Tale. I did all those Kickstarter, and the funny thing is, each one I made a little bit more money in terms of the money I think Brooklyn Boheme, I think we raised 10,000. I forget for how much for Finding the Funk, but for Ballerina's Tale, we did really, really well. I mean, we did like 50 or 60, and I think that some of that came from Prince actually, which is interesting.
Wow.
Who's a big fan of Misty's? He
Wow.
contributed. But I don't know at this late state in my life that I could go through the tension of the Kickstarter campaign again. Because if you don't make the number, you get nothing.
Wow.
Wow. I don't so we're doing this through Indiegogo. Just because and part of it was literally nothing against Kickstarter, because I mean we did really well on that platform. But there's a certain kind of mania I found that you needed to meet that number. I never get what day was it? There was one day we were close to the finish on Ballerina's Tale, but we weren't there. The number was within reach, but we hadn't reached it. And I got up one Sunday, and I got up at 8 o'clock, and I was on social media from 8 o'clock till 5 o'clock that day, hitting people's pages, emailing, you know, it was. I literally got up one time that day. It was because I knew we had to get to it. I knew I had someone who might come in to push us over the top, but he wasn't going to give us what we still had to close the gap.
Yeah.
And so that
It's
was a
work.
memory.
It's not free money. It's not free money.
Oh, it's not free money. And even what we're doing now, uh, I've designed a program, so I have, talking with you is great because that's an unexpected gift. So thank you. So I've designed out a program with videos and different kinds of pieces we're going to launch and show clips from the film. Go back to the location where the picture was shot and do some stuff there. So I have more understanding. It's a long-term program. Don't expect to get all your goal. Maybe not reach all your goal, but to have a reasonable expectation of what you could do if you only get half of the money.
I mean, listen, I think this is look. Crowdfunding has been around for a while now. I think these days with the documentary market suddenly, being more precarious than it has been in the last 15 years, people who have never thought about it before have to think about it fresh. So for someone like you who has put in the work, for whom it's not new, it's I think it will be educational for some people watching this to take inspiration from you. I mean, one thing that you've always expressed to me about crowdfunding is that, of course, it's about raising the money, but it's also about raising a community of supporters. And I wonder if you can reflect on that.
I really think that's this day and age is more and more important because the goal, what I think with every one of these films was get it to a certain point, get an investor buyer, like Finding the Funk, we sold a VH1. We got Ballerina's Tale far enough, we got to Tribeca, and IFC bought it there. But now that that was 10 years ago. Now the question is this going to be something that I'm making just to sell it to a streamer, or is this something that I can monetize myself? Is this doc something that I can partner up with a brand to maybe do screenings around the country of it, or at some point and forward it in a sense or whatever. So I do think, or chop it up into pieces and sell it as a YouTube series down the road. So these are things there's so many more possible options. And so the amount of money we may need to make it or is different perhaps, because if we end up saying, okay, we don't like the deals we've been offered to do it. We think we're not gonna. It's not enough back end. There's not enough opportunity. Let's just make it into a YouTube streaming series and sell it. Whatever. So those are things that I hadn't thought. Or make a deal with a brand that might want to. Nike might want to do something with a design sneakers that are connected to it. Who knows? So those are the kind of options I think that are different. I think in many ways we have more options.
Hmm.
But obviously the challenge to get money is different. But this is the way it's going to be. You're looking at what's going on with Smithsonian and the pressure they're getting. That's going to end up affecting any kind of government funding, and at least in the foreseeable 4 years. So building community of people who are interested in what you're interested in, who might be supporters down the road, I'm even thinking about, like, at some point I'll maybe do a limited edition book tied into the doc. So I think the ways I'm thinking about connecting with people on this is very different than I did 10 years ago with Ballerina's Tale. And I think there's more
So,
options in a way.
as we wrap this up, Nelson, I want to ask you about the questions that you're looking to answer in the making of this film. Clearly, you know a lot about the subject. You were there, in 1998. But I have to imagine that as you start to think about going back to some of the people who were there and getting them to reflect on where they were in their careers then, where they are in their lives now, what are some of the big questions that you're hoping to ask?
I mean, I mentioned it earlier, but I think one of the underappreciated or underexplored areas is the nature of being middle-aged in a youth culture. How does one age gracefully or not gracefully? Some of the guys involved in this, what's their day job now? I mean, all these folks who are in that picture don't have careers now. The Fat Joe, who's unique, he's been able to reinvent himself. There's a few, obviously, but there's quite a few people who are out of the business. I had a phone call recently from a DJ Hollywood. He was one of the original MCs I saw back in the 70s, right? And he was big in New York at parties. But he was never on. He had made a couple of records, but he missed. He was the generation before the records. And he hit me up and said, Nelson, how come no one knows who I am? And blah, blah, and he's late 60s. I said, well, I was, it was a hard conversation to talk about. The fact is, you have a great legacy. I saw you. Many people hold you deeply in our hearts as a leader and an innovator. But there's really not a recorded history. You predate records. So just dealing with that fact and talking to him about it was really revelatory. So I think there's a way to explore some of that in this. I mean, I'll be 68 this year. So, like, dealing with my own relationship to this culture, I think, is going to be part of, because it was a huge part of why I had a career. Much like Spike, there was the Spike part of it that opened the door for film. Hip hop explored a lot of doors for. I feel like CB4 I did with Chris Rock. That was only possible because partly because of what Spike had done in Hollywood, and partly because hip hop had become this commercial force. And there's a whole bunch of work that was done in that era. Boys in the Hood is named after a rap record.
Uh-huh.
Ice Cube is in the movie because he's a big star at the time, not made by Hollywood, but made through music. So there's this interplay between cinema and hip hop music, particularly, that played a huge role in my career. And so in a way, this film is trying to, like, if the big ambition is to thread this so that we deal with the beginnings of hip hop through some of the guys, we deal with where it was, and we sort of look back on that this next few years, And the other kind of fun thread, and I am wearing my Charlie Parker t-shirt, is that I've been in contact with Sonny Rollins. Sonny is the last living person from the 58 photo.
Wow. I get kind of chills just hearing you say that.
So I'm trying to I think he's going to talk to me. And I don't know what Sonny knows about hip hop. He's 94, but Sonny knows a lot about Harlem and knows about. So just getting Sonny to reflect on that day back in '58, there may be a way I'm hoping to connect, because I think that's the thing, that one of the things that really drew people to that event for a lot of them was there was this photo, this jazz photo. I've seen it in barbershops. I've seen it in basements of people's homes. I want to be in something like that. I want to be part of that same continuity. And to me, that's what the film is. And to me, that's, for me, Gordon Parks is like, that's who I wanted to be. He's a filmmaker. He wrote books. He was just, and he was a bon vivant. Gordon was just this wonderful guy. I'll tell you one story, and I'll end with this. I got to go to Gordon's house to some kind of little reception, and he did a book. One of his last photo books was Half Past Autumn. It's a collection of like still lives of these weird kind of moonscapes. And I'm in his house, and there's like this little thing with sand and stones, and whoa, he shot the pictures are of this little kind of like atrium he has in his house with some rocks and stones, but in his hands, they look like surreal space landscapes.
Uh-huh.
That's how great an eye this guy had. So I admire him deeply. So for me, it's also a way to thread. You have the hip hop history, you have Gordon's history, you have Harlem's history. It's just an amazing piece to make, I think.
Well, for everyone watching, if you're as enthralled by these stories as I am listening to Nelson talk about them, I hope you can reach out and look up the Indiegogo campaign for a great day in hip hop, and let's help get this made.
Thank you. Hey, thank you so much for having me. And thank you, everyone, you 53 people, for watching.
All right. Thanks, Nelson. Be well.
Thank you.